I'm just gonna introduce myself a little bit. I'm Jaco Wenz. Most of you know me, some may not know me. I'm working for Biobest, beneficial producer, and I'm in the so-called IPS team. And one big part of my job is supporting the people on the ground and our distributors on a technical level. And I was asked to do this series of presentations on different topics of pests and beneficials. And today the topic is spider mites. All of you, are going to get this presentation as a PDF file and afterwards also a link to this recording, but this will take 1 to 2 weeks. Okay, please ask your questions afterwards. This is clear. Write it in the chat, write it in the question and answer. Topic today is going to be spider mite in greenhouse vegetables and strawberries as well as raspberries. And this is our program. Spider mites are a bit of a boring topic sometimes, I think, because we have had the problem already for so long compared to the other pests we talked about, like thrips, invasive thrips. So also our program is going to be quite classic and boring. We're going to talk about the enemy, then there will be the good guys. This is all the beneficials I'm going to talk about. And then we're going to turn to the crops and look at strategies, how to fight spider mites there. And in the end, because I mean, a whole strategy is not just the beneficials, but also the no residue sprays and some plant protection products. If you are waiting here to get the golden bullet, I'm sorry, but the golden bullet we unfortunately do not have. So let's start with the enemy. It is spider mites, and when I say spider mite, I mean Tetranymphus urticea. There is also other spider mites, but the one we have most problems in vegetables and fruit is this one. You can see it here. I hope you see my arrow. You have here the adult. English name is two-spotted spider mite, and I think this is quite fitting. Then we have the nymphs, the young ones with many mites only have 6 legs. And then there is the egg that is perfectly round, and we should keep that in the back of our mind. This is just a stylized depiction of the life cycle. So egg becomes larvae, then we have the nymphal stage and the adult. And down there is just a table about development time at different temperatures. And what you see is 15 degrees first number egg means it takes 14 days for the egg to become a larvae. And if you look at the total time, you see higher temperatures much faster. And to express it differently in a way that is much more relevant to most of you, population development at 25 degrees means it can increase by a factor of 10 in 10 days. And 10 days is a rather short time in our crop cycles, and it's a long time if you're waiting for your beneficials to arrive. So what does this mean? It means thinking preventatively. Some general facts. You have two, I would say, color morphs, or two ways the spider mite you could find. It's the standard, so non-hibernating, non-diaposing, you see above. It likes high temperature and low humidity. It has a yellowish to green color. And with shorter day length and lower temperatures, they are diaposing, so they are turning red, they are going to hide. They do not eat, and they are less sensitive to chemical control and unfortunately also to biological control. If you have lighted greenhouses, you will rarely see the red ones, diaposing spider mites. Spider mite damage, you all know. It is reduced photosynthesis. You see these spots that look somehow scratchy. Having damage on the fruit, like you see below, I have done this photo in Austria 2 weeks ago, then you really have a big problem. Spider mite is spreading in the greenhouse via the metal threads. It can also spread on the ground or via persons. Or if there is a really high infestation and the plants are almost dying, they will try to be disseminated by the wind. However, compared to other crops, we have more of hotspots, so not full field infestations. Turning from the enemy to the good guys, or more good girls. Most popular one, of course, is Phytoxylus persimilis. We see a very short video of it eating eggs. Here it is moving on the webbing. It is the only beneficial that can move well on the webbing. Adults devour all stages, while the younger ones mainly eat eggs and the nymphs. Can consume around 25 eggs and 20 nymphs per day. I think this is enough to get an impression. And here we see a life cycle of these beneficials, starting with the egg, larvae, nymph, and protonymph, and then the adult. And I just want to draw your attention to the right side with this table, and what you can see there, that Phytoxylus persimilis always is faster compared to Tetranymphus urticae. So it has a faster development and lives for around 1 month. And you might think, oh, then it's easy to fight against spider mite, but think twice. Monitoring Phytoxylus, we have a nice picture here. You see the predatory mite is always a bit more pear-shaped. The adults are orange colored, while the young ones, here the nymphs, they are more pale. They are much more active compared to the spider mites. And if you look at this egg here, this egg is oval-shaped compared to perfectly round that spider mites have. It can lay eggs in hot spots. It easily lays 60 eggs per lifetime, and it eats all life stages, while many other beneficials rather prefer the eggs or the young ones. And it is clear eating an adult female that would lay eggs is much more effective than eating only eggs. And one big problem is this optimum of 25 degrees and rather high relative humidity. Now, how should we use Phytoxylus and also the other loose predatory mites? Use them as fast as possible after delivery. Spread them evenly at the level of incidence. This is often mainly in the head or a bit below. And if you apply full field, of course, apply much more in the hotspots. Apply not in the heat of the day, and this is not easy. A machine like the Entomatic that spreads on huge acreage that is very fast, like 1 hectare, 1 hour in a strawberry 6-row configuration might help you apply at the right time. Ideal is to apply it on a moist plant, and this has 2 advantages. First is not so much material is falling down, and the second is they can consume water right away. Because all mites need free water to consume to keep their water status. And this is one of the reasons that they don't like the low humidity. Misting and spraying water is an underestimated method to help predatory mites and to annoy spider mites. So often we don't even dare to say, look, take a backpack sprayer and spray in these hotspots. But this is really something that helps a lot. It's so easy, someone has to do it. But if you have perhaps a grandfather in the company that wants to spray with the glyphosate, the herbs, this would be something that would be much more helpful for your crop. So here we just see free water on a pepper. This is good. Also here we have a strawberry with this guttation, so high humidity at night, a lot of root pressure, plant cannot transpire. So here you have these drops. But of course you have negative aspects. On the left-hand side, you see this is starting of downy mildew when you have guttation in the cucumber. Strawberries, a little bit of glutation, not a problem. Cucumber, please try not to have it. Moving on to the second most popular beneficial, we have here Californicus. Not eating standard spider mite. This is probably Brevipulpus. Californicus has some big advantages compared to Phytoxylus. Not here in the development time. You also see higher temperature. It works much faster. But that we can use it preventatively because we can use Californicus in sachets, and standard advice is use 1 sachet every second running meter and repeat after 4 weeks or even in shorter cycles. It can also be used as loose material, but sachets have many advantages, and we talked about this very intensively in our last webinar concerning trips. So this is a romantic vision of nature. We have the grass, we have someone eating the grass, and then comes the lion that eats here the wildebeest. And the same is happening in the sachets. And last time we talked very intensively about all the advantages of sachets. They run for a long time. Per adult, it's much cheaper. You can apply them in the heat, in every weather. You don't have to think about it so often. You have a certain amount of protection against plant protection products, and so on and so on. So sachets really should be the backbone where possible. You might ask, okay, how do I monitor if my beneficials work? The beneficials, so the predatory mites, in this instance Californicus, they lay their eggs. They like to lay their eggs near the veins of the leaf on the underside, and most often on these hairs. They also like to be often in this donatia, so where these veins meet, where you have this triangle. And of course, one thing that you can always look for is for reduced pest symptoms. But really monitoring is of prime importance. Amplusius andersoni is a mite. I don't know if you know it. It's very interesting. It's extremely interesting on paper, so it's resistant to hot and cold conditions. It can overwinter with spider mites and can be there in the next season. It has a wide prey range, spider mite as well as trips. It can also profit a lot from pollen. So this is very good for raspberries or strawberries outdoors or in tunnels. But to be quite honest, deliverability and quality have been a topic. So I would say if you want to try this, this would rather be for 2026 where we have a bigger production. Amplusius degenerans we also covered with the trips because degenerans is mainly seen as an adversary of trips. But to be really specific, it is a generalist predator of leaf and flower pests, and it works really well in those crops that have pollen, namely pepper. You see here in bold an obligate leaf feeder. It has the possibility to suck water out of the plant without doing damage. And this is a huge advantage if you have very low humidity and high temperature. So in the day it will suck water, it will hide, and then in dusk it will come out and do its work. Important is to build a strong population early in the season. This is the life cycle. I'm not going to talk about this intensively. Application is 2,500 to 5,000 individuals per hectare twice. This is meant for trips. For spider mites, we would advise higher numbers. You can apply them directly to the leaves or in bio boxes, and best practice is use 2 release points per row. We are talking about pepper. Have on this slabs no cucumeris or other sachets, and feed with Nutrimite at the start. This would be the very best application method. Here you see them. One advantage of Degenerans, it's fast and it's black, so it's really easy to check. Other mites are much harder to see. And also in peppers, they are on the leaf and on the in the flower, so you should check both. Now you might ask, well, I'm buying so many mites from you. There's Cucumeris, Monterans, Swirsky. Do they not eat spider mites? Do I need all these other mites? Or you might say, look, I've Googled them and they are called generalists by those people that are biologists. So this means they can eat a lot of different foods. Does it not? And unfortunately, they will not eat spider mites in any relevant numbers. Many mites can eat them if they're hungry, if there's nothing else there. But if there's other foods, they will just not eat them. So this is not an option. And now we turn to a beneficial that we can sell in Finland, but that to my knowledge, almost no one is using. And I'm really interested why that is. This is Feltella acarizuga. Some older guys might know them under the name Pterodiplosis persicei. And we see it here. It's a predatory gall midge. So same group like Aphidoletes aphidomyza. Here you see a lot. Okay, so what we see here is the different life stages. We have these eggs that are elongated, a bit different to Aphidoletes, while those are orange. Then we have the larvae, much more reddish compared to Aphidoletes. We have a pupae, looks really beautiful, and then the adult. And as always, males have longer antennae and females shorter ones. Here is some other pictures. Once again, the larvae on the bottom, the pupae on the top. And our advice is to combine this beneficial with, for example, Phytocylus. And here is just a very beautiful picture you see in the upper right hand. You see spider mite damage because there was spider mites. Then eggs were laid, larvae have eaten the spider mites, and now you have this beautiful pupae all around. And Feltella also can occur naturally, especially in raspberries and strawberries. What else can we say about these beneficials? It consumes 5 times more adult spider mites compared to Phytocylus persimilis. It can also attack the diapause spider mites, so these red winter spider mites. It is very resistant to low humidity. And let me be very clear here. High humidity is better for all live data, so it lays more eggs, it eats more spider mites and so on and so on, but it can stand the low humidity much better while still having an effect. And this is especially interesting in crops like lighted tomatoes and lighted cucumbers. And one of the disadvantages, it is sensitive to sulfur, so a bit more sensitive to sulfur compared to our other beneficials. This is the life cycle. What you see also is that the development time is much longer compared to the others, if you remember, sometimes only 4 or 3 days. And so this means don't ever use them just once, but use them in following weeks. Standard advice is with low infestations, use 200 individuals per hotspots. They come in pots of 250, so you put one in the hotspots and then repeat every week in following weeks. We say standard is 3 to 5 packages per hectare and do this a minimum of 3 times. So in week 4, 5, 6, for example. And with high infestation, keep adding them for a longer time. I think because many have not seen it, we are looking at this video for a short time. Biobest has for all beneficials these short videos if you are not sure how to apply them. So removing the lid. There is the paper. On the paper are the pupae. Just put them there on the mat. If you have ants, you need to put something there so they don't get there, something like fat, grease, or something sticky, and then just leave them in there. They fly out and do their work. Okay, they fly out and do their work. And this, of course, is interesting. So it's much less work compared to applying Phytocillus full field. Good. So turning from this, for many of you new beneficial to something very old, Macrolophus pygmaeus. We are not looking at the video. It's a generalist bug. We use it against whitefly. Whitefly they like the most, but also spider mites and caterpillar egg in several crops. Also tutor, if you had this, it would have an effect there. This is the life cycle. We see it starts with a very low temperature, even 10 degrees, but relevant development is then here from 20 degrees Celsius. I don't know if someone ever looked for this, but the females, they have a bit of a more roundish belly because the eggs are there. The eggs are laid inside the plant tissue. You cannot see them with the naked eyes. With the loop, it's very, very hard. I never managed to. I tried, but I never managed to. Then we have the young nymphs, really pale colored, really small. And then the older nymph, and you see here, this is the so-called wing primordia, so the stumps where later the wings will develop. And then we have here the Macrolophus. Macrolophus you cannot really mix up with anything else. Nasy, but you don't have it. Perhaps some predatory bugs, but if you see something like this, then you have Macrolophus there. I'm not gonna go into detail with all of our new, with the new Macrolophus system. We changed the system like 3 years ago, and from then on we have much better storage, much better delivery, and much more active Macrolophus when they arrive in your crop. The one thing that I would say, there is 3 kinds of foods, and this is the Ephestria, this is the Nutrimag, then we have the mix, this is the Nutrimag Plus, and then we have the Artemia, the Artemag, that stores for a longer time. And what we do not advise is use the old method of applying in a row in spots and then only feed the spots. Because if you use our quality, they are much more active from the start, so feed the whole row right from the start. So what else? One topic concerning Macrolophus is always the price. And of course, price is an important decision point. But I would say if you use beneficial just once or twice, and then you have the effect for the whole year, you have to look at it differently compared to Encarsia that you then perhaps need to use 30 or 35 times a year. And especially, I would say rather look for a strong Macrolophus and then have less Encarsia necessary later. Okay, what else can we say there? Yeah, it's highly voracious, so it feeds on all stages of spider mites, 30 to 40 spider mite adults a day. So it really has a big effect. There is 2 products that we have. This is the standard product meant for population buildup, and then there's the nymph product. Nymph product is meant for applying in hotspots, and why would this be? Well, we talked about Macrolophus prefers the whitefly eggs, and if there's spider mites and somewhere else there's whitefly eggs, they will fly away because the adults can fly away. The nymphs can. So some people use this nymph product for hotspot treatment. I don't know, I'm not a big fan because those nymphs are not really smart. Sometimes they just walk off a leaf, but please tell us about your experiences. I said aim for a strong Macrolophus population. And how do we do this? Well, the Macrolophus population is a function of how much you put in, how many you put in, and of which quality. Biobest is the best, as I said. How you feed, so only rows or full field, and how much you feed, and which product you feed. Then is the question, how much do you leave in the Release rows, do you leave less compared to the rest? So do you have more eggs developing there? Then the question is, what do you do with the leaves you have removed? And what do you do with the side shoots? This is how high-tech greenhouses in tomato look all over the world. And this is how high-tech greenhouses look in Finland. Let me be very clear, I'm not your crop consultant, and there is reasons to remove leaves from the ground. And one of the reasons can be prevention of botrytis. However, if you leave the leaves there first and then you remove them after 2 weeks, because botrytis also can be saprophytic, so it develops there. If you remove after 2 weeks, this is the worst of both worlds, because then you're drawing them through the whole greenhouse and lots of botrytis spores flying around. Additionally, if you feed Artemia later, if you have the leaves on the ground, it feeds them better, so you get much higher populations. And I think this might be something to talk with your colleagues about. And now let's turn to the side shoots, because you might leave the leaves there or you remove them. But many people, they collect the side shoots and they tell the people to put them in a bucket and then they throw those side shoots out. But where are the macrolophus? They are in the head. Where do they lay their eggs? In the head. So these side shoots are full of eggs. This is beneficial that you already paid for. And instead of collecting them and throwing them out, it's much better to put those on the gutters where you have hotspots. Of course, the eggs need some time to develop, but to me, it's really crazy to first pay for the beneficial and then remove it. Okay, so now we know the pest and the beneficials, so now it should be easy. We just combine Phytocylus with spidermites and then follows success. If it was so easy, you wouldn't be here in this presentation and I would probably out of my job. So let's talk now about the crops and the strategies that we can apply. With tomatoes, we have some general problems due to these hairs. We cannot use preventative predatory mites like in cucumber. Phytos also don't like tomatoes a lot. Some may remember there was this strain T by a competitor. So it was realized that the second generation that was adapted to the tomato worked better. And so what one did is, instead of growing the spider mites and the phyto on beans, they did it on tomato. And it was a bit better, but the yield was much lower, so this was only a short-lived product. Additionally, many have the problem with russet mite, so sulfur is sprayed year-round. And additionally, especially with the small fruited varieties, we don't have powdery mildew resistance, so also there sulfur is used. And sulfur is bad for Feltella and Phytocylus, and also for the buildup of Macrolophus. And be very careful, I say the buildup, so early in the season, let's say first half of the season, first 4 or 5 months. But later in summer, Macrolophus population is strong, sulfur is not a problem. It can even be beneficial. You see here this picture, this is a Macrolophus on a finger, and this very fat ass here, this is a fungus attacking the Macrolophus, Entomophthoralis, and you can fight this fungi with the sulfur. Okay, if it looks like this, then you're too late. Scout better next time. General strategy. We need a strong Macrolophus establishment with all the elements named. I will not repeat them. When the first spider mite is seen, apply phyto in these spots. And then, very important, order phytos for the next weeks, because first new spots will appear, plus reapply to the old spots. Always scout those spots where you applied. Did the phytos take? Do I see them back? Do they eat? Or has it not taken for whatever reason? As said before, spraying with the backpack sprayer, 2-3 hotspots, it's not a problem. Go there every day. Someone has the task. It's 15 minutes and it's much better. Do not wait with the full field application of phyto too long. For me, more than 3 hotspots per hectare, rather than use the full field with 50 or 20, much more in the hotspots, and add these Feltiella buckets in the hotspots. And even at lower infestation level, it can be cheaper to make the full field application earlier because you don't see everything and then you have more security. This I already said, use the Feltiella. They can help you a lot and establish. Okay. Once again, it can also be a good added value before application. So there's some people that spray the plants first and then apply the phyto. For example, you have your sprayer just with water, and then there is from the competition those blowers, and you have one right and left, and you just combine this for very good application. Now let's turn to russet mite and powdery mildew and the use of sulfur. So this is what I would advise you to do, or let's first think about what is the aim. The aim is to not have to use sulfur so much when I have spider mites and my beneficials are already in. Can I achieve this? And my idea would be, yes, hitting them hard early. As long as no plants are inside the house, you can of course burn sulfur really intensively. Just don't destroy your plastic. Spray sulfur on the gutters and on the ground when the plants are not there. And then at the start of the crop, when the plants are there and Macrolophus not yet, really intensively spray your plants and also spray under because the russet mites, they survive in the constructions. I would say 3 times in 2 weeks would be ideal, but please check with your crop consultant and check concentrations. With reduction of sulfur, we can have a better buildup of Macrolophus, and also Feltiella and Phyto work much better. And then always the question, can application to only stems part of the time be a method? Okay, and if you use the sulfur mainly against powdery mildew, is there alternatives? Could a product like PhytoSafe reduce the reliance on sulfur so you can skip some treatments there? Okay. I didn't say before, today I'm talking a bit longer. It's going to be 55 minutes, so I'm going to talk till like 3 o'clock your time, and then we're going to have time for the questions. Cucumbers, Californicus, for me, I'm a big fan. I would use it as the base strategy, and I would apply them the week after planting or a week after that, but best is week after planting, and then replace after 3 to 4 weeks. My standard advice is to use a mix of Cucumeris and Swirsky loose at the start, so plants are on the, how do you say, on the thread. So you have fixed them, and then you apply. So you have mites on every plant. This has no spider mite effect. But for more security, if you know you always have a lot of spider mite, you could also use 10 Californicus there instead of the Swirsky if you think, oh, trips not the season, I never have a problem, or in addition to Swirsky. And like you have the second crop, you couldn't clean well, you think, oh, there's going to be really a lot of spider mites. It could be a thought to put 10 phytos in there preventatively. 98% of them are going to die because there's no spider mite where you apply them. But those 2% that are there when the spider mites come, they might be valuable and cheaper in the long run compared to running after. Like tomato, first spider mite seen, use the phyto, order for the next weeks. Additionally, use the Feltiella. Spraying of water, I'm always repeating, do not wait with the full field application for too long. Mixing Californicus loose with phyto gives more security. This is an option. In tomato, we cannot use them. We have the problem when it's very hot, then the spider mite likes the heat and the low humidity and goes to the top. And the phytos don't like it, so they go to the bottom, and then you can have like they are separated. You have the pests there and the beneficials there. There is enough beneficials, but they don't come together. So using some more Californicus in conjunction, that can stand the low humidity better, gives you more security. From next year, we're going to be able to deliver a prey mite that Amblysaurus swirsky as well as Californicus can eat. And this you can then mix in the loose material or apply separately to boost the population, especially when there's only hotspots and you want to boost in these other parts of the greenhouse. Yeah, I'm not saying do this, some crazy thing. Some growers do use Macrolophus in cucumber. Why shouldn't you do it? It's a shorter crop, so they don't establish so well. They also establish more slowly. Damages are possible. They bite cucumbers, they bite stems, so you can have breaking heads and you can also have bended fruits. But it fights against whitefly as well as spider mites as well as trips, and some growers are quite happy with that. But once again, this is experimental. This is not the first step you do. This is when you have a huge problem you cannot control. Pepper. Spider mites in pepper are a bit differently behaved compared to the other crops I talked about. We have less pronounced hotspots, so they are on the full field more, and they often never really disappear. So some people really throw every 4 weeks phyto. I don't think this is the best way to handle that, and also it's quite expensive. But compared to these other crops, we don't have a very clear strategy. It's more elements that you could choose from. Amblysaius californicus has a very good preventative effect, but it doesn't really establish well in pepper. It often needs to be reapplied. I just talked about this feeder mite, this prey mite product that you could use in conjunction with this Amblysaius californicus. Phytos I would apply earlier on the full field because you don't see all spots where they are, so this would be my strategy. And Macrolophus, if you use them in pepper, mainly against the caterpillar, it also has a good effect. If you use Aureus against trips as well as Macrolophus, so an intensive strategy, don't apply them in the same rows. If you have both, often later in the season, Macrolophus is stronger and will be a big competitor for Aureus. Amblysaurus andersoni, as said for 2026, this might be an interesting way to do it. Feltiella, here also once again, apply them in the hotspots that are not so pronounced. Degenerans I talked before has a good preventative effect, but a slow buildup. And also, if you do this old strategy that we developed like 20 years ago, Cucumeris plus Degenerans, this often works really good. However, if you combine it with Swirsky or Monterensis, it does not work as well because Swirsky and Monterensis are much stronger compared to Cucumeris. The Californicus I talked before, I would apply either on every slab or on every second slab. Now let's turn to the fruits. Strawberries. This is the slide I showed you before in the TRIPS webinar. So this is about everbearers. And what do? Usually Californicus is the backbone. I would say every second running meter, every 5 running meter, then you have not a big problem. Curative treatment would be Phytosalus and Feltiella. The one big difference with strawberries is really check your young plants. With other plants, you really have a bad supply or something went wrong if you have lots of spider mites. With strawberries, this really can happen. I forgot to put in the photo. If you have them already on the young plants, do a legal dip treatment or spraying, and then use phyto from the start when persistence of this treatment is gone. Californicus once again as the baseline. Apply them when you have leaf closure, and they can work for many, many weeks if applied correctly, because the pollen of strawberry is well suited. Phytocelus, some people still work with 5 per running meter. I wouldn't use less than 10, because otherwise you get spots that are not treated well. Feltiella in strawberries, especially outside where you also have natural Feltiella, works like a charm. And then look for the climate. How is the grass under my benches? Can you irrigate them? This is also something where you can play with. And then the natural beneficials, are they there? Yeah, it's not about throwing beneficials, it's about how to apply them. And this is from a paper we did for the crop workers in Germany. So this is a good application. Applied to the plant, but with contact to the substrate. What is going to happen? This sachet is gonna get moist outside. It's gonna get moist on the whole outside area, but there is plastic foil inside. So the inside is not gonna get wet. So this means higher humidity, a longer running of the sachets, more adults walking out, longer running sachets. We had sachets running in excess of 8 weeks. And this is very cheap compared to putting them in a second time. This is how not to do it. So having them hung on the outside, sun is shining there, low humidity, they don't run for a long time. And what is also bad, just putting them on the substrate. If you look closely at the Californicus sachets, they are punctured through, so they have holes on both ends. If you lay them on the ground, they're gonna suck in water and then they're gonna be too wet and you have this ammonia stench inside. If you look at the Swirsky sachets, they have a hole only on one side. These ones you could lay flat down, but still then people could lay them on the wrong side. So I'd always say apply them to the plant, contact to the substrate. This is best practice and you can save a lot of money. Raspberries and perhaps also brambles. What is the general strategies? Once again, Californicus, it's getting boring, isn't it? Californicus as the baseline, no less than 15 phytos full field, reapply. If you only apply to the hotspots, please order for the next 2 weeks. Use the Feltiella. And in tunnel productions, we often have a spider mite explosion in the middle of the tunnel where we have higher temperatures. In Germany, this is in the middle of June with the longest days. And I don't know if you have the same observation in your crops, but if this is always returning, then of course the strategy would be to apply more Californicus there in the middle of the row, and perhaps also apply phyto there, perhaps even before seeing. Just a low amount. It's not many plants, but they're in the middle, and you can sleep better. Yeah, if someone asked me what is your favorite beneficial, unfortunately, I'm not often asked. It would be this guy. It's Stetorus. I don't know if you have it in Finland. You should, but I haven't really found out. So this is a beneficial that eats spider mites. It's a black ladybug, and it's really beautiful because it can, it can clean up those big hotspots. Yeah, write me a message if you have seen this in your crop. Okay, crazy ideas. Once again, I'm not telling you do this, but just I want to give you some background of how one could think in a system. Trap plants. What is a trap plant? A trap plant is a plant that is much more attractive to our pest compared to the crop where we want to harvest something. And one combination that has been done in the US is bush bean and tomato. The idea is at the start and end of the row, you put those bush bean plants that you have already pre-cultivated, and then about every 5 meters. And then you scout those plants where the spider mites are going to go. And then either you remove them or you treat them or you put your beneficials there. But it's a double-edged sword. It's something that in winter everyone's, yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to save money and it's going to be much better. But often it is, you do this and then you think, oh, I've already done something. I don't have to care so much. But then your spider mites are on this trap plant that is much better suited and that will increase those spider mites much faster than in your tomatoes. And then you have laid something like a time bomb. So I'm not a big fan of this system, but one could think about it. Alternatively, if your greenhouse is still warm, you could put bush bean plants there and catch spider mites when the greenhouse is empty and the spider mites are not diapausing. In cucumbers, it does not work because spider mite likes cucumbers also quite a bit. Good. And now we've talked about the beneficials, and of course, there's also other elements in strategies one could use. And I'm going to talk about no residue sprays because the residue is a big topic in Finland, in that we don't want to have it. I write it always there down. Please always check your local laws and regulation. I also check plant compatibility because I cannot be on top of every country I'm going to, what is allowed and what is not allowed. I'm talking about two different groups of no residue sprays, and the first is Eradico, that is starch-based, and Siltac, that is silicone-based. And those work via contact, so you have to get a very good coverage, and they work in a way that you want them to dry fast, so it sticks the beneficial to the plant. No, sticks the pest to the plant, of course. It immobilizes them. So it's like a race. Will this one dry faster, or will the pest be able to clean itself? And this means drying fast. You should spray this in the middle of the day. And this is quite attractive because then often it is better than you have to spray like 12 in the night or something. No one wants to do this. And on the other hand side, there is this, I just call them the soaps. So everything that is working like a surfactant is the same. You need the good contact, the good coverage, but here it has to dry slowly because the effect is you decrease the surface tension and then it floods like the trachea, those breathing holes of the aphid, spidermite, whatever. It is soft on macrolophus, but all those flying beneficials that you hit, you will kill. What is very important, if you work with soaps, you need soft water, or you need to make your water soft. Everybody knows if you have hard water, you need much more washing, like how do you say, washing powder for your washing machine, and it's the same here. So invest in a little bit of citric acid, make your water softer if you need to do this. And also care for your plant. Strawberry has very hard plants. You can go there with concentrations that you would kill your cucumber with. And this is just a little bit, we talk about crazy ideas. Foam, of course, keeps moist longer. This is me with some of those car foamers applying some soap. And this worked quite well in against Apis gossypii. Other no residue products, there is oils, for example, canola oil or orange oil. In a way, they are similar to soaps and in a way not. They can become sticky. You can have residue there that is not relevant as a residue, but people don't want to buy it. It also has some effect on the eggs. This is very interesting. For example, in Austria, it's often used as a hotspot treatment in older cucumbers. Don't use it on young cucumbers, older cucumbers. And the orange oil is quite aggressive. So there is labels with numbers that if you spray this, your plant is not going to look happy. So I would prefer the canola oil. Orange oil is for me rather against whitefly adults in the head of tomato. Entomopathogenic fungi is a topic that often turns up. It has an effect mainly against the adults because the problem is the spider mites hatch really, really fast. And then those spores, they germinate, and in this time they already hatched, so it will not attack your spider mite nymph. It needs high humidity. Where do we have this? It's soft to our beneficials, but it works slow. It can be fogged. For me, it's not the first line of defense, I would say. And now to a topic, spraying right. The less intrinsic efficacy a product has, the better you have to spray. I think it's really obvious. And then the question is, do you know your sprayer? Do you know your nozzles? And how old are your nozzles? I had this talk before. Do you even know how much water you apply? You should. Can you adjust your sprayer? And what do you do when you adjust the sprayer? What do you want to achieve? And just a question, think about it for 5 or 10 seconds. If you have a dense foliage, for example, you have cucumber in an umbrella system, and you need to get in there against the spider mites. You really have to hit them. It's a contact acting. What do you do? How do you adjust your sprayer? And unfortunately, still many growers answer, I will increase the pressure, with the idea higher pressure getting further in. But the opposite is true. If you increase your pressure, you're gonna have smaller droplets. Part is just gonna get into the air, and the other part, you will have very good coverage on the outside. The other part, they don't get in so far because you cannot throw those smaller droplets so far. So this would be the worst that you can do. What can you do? I mean, I'm not a spraying expert, but one thing that you have to think about, you drive along the row and you spray to the side. You're not spraying in a 90-degree angle because it's a vector. You're driving in this direction, like straight, and you spray to the side. So you're spraying from the front. One possibility would be decrease the pressure, have bigger droplets, and then drive much faster and spray in both directions. So driving in and driving out, and then having less of a spray shadow. Just an idea. How do you clean your nozzles? Those ultrasound cleaners are very cheap and very good. Everybody who did it said, oh, there's lots of stuff in there. And then let's turn to plant protection products. This is very shortly. We have Nisoran. Nisoran also, you need good coverage, so good spraying. Works on eggs and larvae. You have lots of sublethal effects, so the females lay less eggs. Those eggs do not hatch. That is very good. It's a slow effect, but long working, but it's very hard to assess. How do you do this? It's an egg. Will it hatch or not? I don't know. You know? It's soft on biology and a very good combination, but has fast resistance building, so most countries only allow once or twice per year. Movento, we all know it has good effect in strawberries. In other crops, I'm not really happy with it. It will only be possible next season still, and it has a negative effect on all mites. And with the acaricides, everybody knows, oh, this could be bad for my beneficials. But in our experience, also switch. So this combination of cyprodinil and fludeoxonil is detrimental for all predatory mites in the buildup. So what we advise to do is use switch where you have also these big secondary effects, like shelf life of strawberry, or when the population is very strong. Okay, and then what I with other pests also say, it would be nice to end clean to start clean. So the idea is, in an ideal world, you would do it like this. In the season, you use the no residue products and your beneficials can work. And then at the end of the season, you kill everything with this broadband insecticides that work very well, very high efficacy. But the question is, what would these insecticides be that are still available and allowed in the crops, and as well are secure for the people then cleaning out the crop? And I think we don't really have them anymore. But you can try to reduce with what you have the spider mite infestation at the end of the crop and try to start as clean as possible. One thing that I really want to lay my emphasis on, it's not just about the numbers thrown on the plants. This is my German colleague Tamara, and she's smiling, standing next to a raspberry where those raspberry growers think there's nothing to smile about. And this is 3 tunnels at a big grower. And those 3 tunnels have been treated exactly the same like all others. But in these 3 tunnels, we have a big problem, obviously. Let's look at the next picture. I've rarely seen this. So if the plants are dying, there's no nutrients left, the spider mites go to the top and they wait for the wind to carry them away. And the reason is the fogging system in these 3 tunnels was clogged. You see the algae there, so this didn't work. It was treated exactly the same, but the climate was different. And if you didn't know that, then you would say, oh, those beneficials were bad. But it was just the climate that was different here. Okay, let's sum this up. The better you scout, the earlier you can act and have a better crop, save money. Use sachets wherever possible. Think about the climate and local conditions in the crop. So where is it drier compared to others? There probably the hotspots will occur on the path and stuff like that. Spraying water is cheap and helps, but someone has to do it. This is often the problem. We all have lots of stuff to do. Hotspot treatments with phytos, is the way to go, but please order already for the next weeks so you have a little bit there to reapply. Even ordering a little phyto at the start. Invest those €100 might be worth the money because it might be then 1 week later, oh, there is the first hotspots. Luckily, I have something to apply there. If you decide to spray, make the most out of it, and the best Macrolophus quality will be the cheapest at the end of the season. With this, I would stop my presentation. Thank you for listening, and I would like to answer your questions and discuss what you want to tell me. No, I'm stop sharing. And Anastasia, perhaps you can read the questions if they are there.
Don't see yet question. I just would like to say thank you, Jakob, for the nice presentation. Again, to summarize it, it is the preventive strategy still can cause a lot of savings of your money. That is the summary which we can conclude out of the presentation.
Always.
And for participants, it's just because Jakob had the first words today. Just to also to summarize, that was our third presentation out of the serial of webinar which we organized together with our Finnish distributors in Finland. And at the demand of our distributors, we organized it, and we had talk already about the aphids control, about thrips control, and today was the spider mite control. And I see it is a good message take home from the presentation. Although, if you would like to have still that information in your hands, we have recorded presentation. There were some technical issues last time. We noticed that not everyone received the link for that presentation. Just please contact me, Jakob, or your distributor, and to ask for that link of the presentation for previous subject as well, and this one you will receive in the coming weeks. So, and now to the topics. I don't see yet any questions. I hope it will come yet.
You can either write it in the chat or the question and answer, or you could raise your hand. This should be also possible. Then we can take you in here and you can ask it in person. I cannot believe that there is no questions.
Can you read it, Jakob, or do you see the chat, or I have to read for you?
There is one question. Can you prevent or slow down the infestation of spider mites just by fogging? Yes, increasing the humidity will slow down spider mites. But as I said before, at 25 degrees Celsius, they can increase by a factor of 10 in 10 days. And of course, fogging works the best if you have your phytos in there. So you increase the rate of increase for the phytos and you decrease the rate of increase for the spider mites. This is the best. I think if you just fog, even if you have 30% efficacy, you might not even see this because they are so fast. So it's, yes, it does, but always use in conjunction with beneficials, I would say.
Maybe I would like to ask the person who sent the question, which crop do you have in mind? Question regarding.
Yeah, so tarsonemid mites are very different mites. It's not so easy of a question. Usually we have tarsonemid mites in raspberries and strawberries. And either one strategy can be Californicus. They can eat quite a lot, but Cucumeris is very cheap. So the normal strategy is apply at least 500 Cucumeris per running meters twice in 14 days. A lot of my Dutch colleagues say rather use 1,000, but you will never clean them completely out. The topic is always where do they come from? Often from planting material. Earlier times, intensive Vertimac treatments were done that worked well. Yeah. But this is a complicated topic that we don't have really good options against. Ampluceus andersoni also works there, but Cucumeris usually is the way to go. Yeah.
Okay, I got one more question.
And perhaps to add, because those Tarsonemid mites, they have quite characteristic leaf, how do you say, twisting, and you should train your people to recognize this, because the earlier, as with all pests, you can act, then the better.
There is another question. Yeah.
The best way to fight spider mites is to use multiple predators. Yeah, I think it's good when this stuck. If you can use Californicus sachets, then start with Californicus sachets. Then apply the phyto, it would be. And additionally, use Feltiella. Feltiella really is I don't know why we never pushed for Feltiella. It works really great, especially in raspberries, in strawberries, as an additional predator. And it flies and searches new hotspots. That is really valuable. And we are going to need to increase our scouting and the beneficials, because in the future we don't have how do you say, we don't have a second options. If you have floramide, if you have canamide, you can say, oh, I do it with beneficials, and if it gets out of control, then I do something. But we don't have much of those options anymore. Sure, we can use the oil, the stuff that I showed you. We have perhaps Siltag, we have Eradicate, but the best way is to use these multiple predators. That is right.
Okay. Maybe I have a question for the chat. For the current strategy, what are you using for the spider mites on your crop? And you can write just as a reply the crop and the product which you use. Is it can it be just some of the chemical which you still find hardly? Just a couple
Or
words in
raise,
in
or
a
raise
chat.
your hand if this is
Yeah.
possible, then we can bring you here and you can ask the question yourself. Perhaps that's easier.
Because what I see now more you have on tomato crop you use phytocellulose. Do you have more and better or just alternative successful solution, successful strategy for you, your crop?
Anastasia, was this a question to me or to the chat?
No, it was a question for the chat.
Oh, okay.
Okay, then I have to maybe ask again if there is a confusion. So the question for the chat. So you can write few words. What crop do you use and what product and the crop you use for the spider mite control in your practice?
So we can now change the settings. Allow mic for attendees. Okay. Now you should be able to just open your mic and talk to us. Okay. Good. And there is one attendee that says strawberry and raspberry, Californicus preventatively, phyto spider mites are found. Of course, that is the standard. The one thing you could look about is how you apply the sachets. Is there some better way to do this? Second would be trying Felchella, perhaps in some tunnels, if they can help you with the spider mites.
Jakob, for Felchella, what is the optimal temperature range?
The optimal temperature range is really wide. They can start really early already, especially in the strawberry, like how do you say, tabletops. So I would say between 15 and 30. Above 35 degrees, all beneficials have their problems. Yeah. And the one thing that is really interesting about the Felchella is that it's resistant to low humidity, because low humidity is the one thing that we always have when we have spider mite problems.
Definitely. Does anyone would like to just unmute yourself and ask a question?
Obviously not. Or I have the settings wrong, so it's not possible.
There is a question in the chat.
Allow mic for attendees. Oh, okay. Yeah. That is a very hard question, and it's hard to answer that. So we have a well-established population of Phyto and Californicus, but now Drosophila Suzuki comes. What to do next? That is a hard question because Drosophila is doing lots of damage and also hidden damage. And if you deliver your raspberries with larvae inside, people don't like it. So let's say you want to keep your beneficials in there as long as possible. Then, of course, you have to do all the hygiene measures. So pick early, don't let any fruit fall to the ground. That's the first thing. And then it is hard to give legal advice because what works against Drosophila, of course, is Mospilan, acetamiprid. What works is Spintor. And what also works is, of course, the pyrethroids. I know of people spraying Spintor with a sugar bait, not on the plants first, but on the ground where there is grass. There is no indication for that, but that is the first way or the idea behind this is to draw them there and to be able to wait a bit longer to spray on the crop. But at some point you are going to need to spray then Spintor, and I would prefer Spintor over acetamiprid Mospilan. But it will then at some point be the end of your beneficial program. Yes, indeed. And I mean, similar it is when you have problems with bugs, with lygus bugs. If you have them in strong numbers, this also is an unsolved problem. True. Netting could be an option, but netting has lots of other ramifications when you completely net in your houses. There is beneficials against Drosophila being tested, interesting ones in France and also in Switzerland, as far as I know. There is some trials in Germany, but at the moment, this is not something that will keep you from having to take this decision, not harvesting or spraying something that will kill your beneficials. Yeah.
Yeah, and to add, there is of course the trap available from Biobest, but that is only for.
Yeah, but this is for monitoring.
For minor issues.
I think we shouldn't. Yeah. give hope where it's really a big problem. True.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, not a nice answer. Sorry, but
You did your best. Do you want to
Okay.
ask anything?
Chat. I see nothing.
Yeah, there is
So-
a person with unmuted microphone, but I don't know if it is for the question or just per mistake not muted.
Okay. I don't know. Yeah, but it looks like there would be no more questions.
Yeah, so let's wait for the last minute. We still have a chance to jump before we end our session today.
Okay. So thank you all for being here and for asking questions. Perhaps there was some new ideas for you. You can always write us if there's any questions that pop up later or you didn't want to ask here in the whole round. We're gonna have a next webinar. And all of you that have been here, we're gonna invite you, and then we hope we are getting those linked to everybody, and also that we can do this a bit better and a bit differently. As I said at the start, you all are going to get the PDF of this presentation and also the link to the webinar, but this might take 10, 14 days. And at the end of the year, we try that you all get the link to all the webinars and all the PDFs that you can in the winter read up on it, and then perhaps we can have a talk about this. Then I would say thanks for attending. Anastasia, anything else we have to say?
Not really. I think you say enough.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much for your participation of the webinar, and until next time.
Okay.
See you.
Bye.
Bye bye.